Since the model launch in 2025, specifically to the cruiser lineup, I haven't seen a whole lot of people talking about, and in my demographic, I haven't seen a lot of people asking about the Street Bob very much. And I'm comparing this to the years past where the Street Bob was a phenomenally popular bike that did really well in sales. So I'm not sure what might be the specific reason, or maybe it's an amalgamation of multiple reasons. So since the new 2025s came out, we have three different classes of the 117 motor in the Softail chassis. So we have the Classic, the Custom, and the High Output. And the Custom makes sense because the Fat Boy and the Breakout are together in that classification. It kind of makes sense. They have the 240mm rear tire. They kind of have a same vibe to them. A lot of guys that like the Fat Boy also like the Breakout and vice versa. Obviously, both lowriders being in the same class makes a lot of sense. But the Street Bob and the Heritage don't really have too much in common outside of the classic motor. They have similar styling where it has kind of the half blacked out, half chrome look on them, which I don't know if I'm a huge fan of. I like the finishes together, but it almost feels like you had a black bike that you were starting to chrome out, or a chrome bike that you were starting to black out, and you're kind of midway through your process. And also it very much reminds me of the Softail Standard, which is now discontinued. So I wonder if that plays a part in it too, is that maybe it's now more considered the base model. But also there are some other stark differences between the Heritage and the Street Bob. The Heritage is one of the most dressed up Softails, and the Street Bob is the most dressed down Softail. The Street Bob is the lightest, the Heritage is the heaviest. Their price differential is very wide between the two, and I also feel like the Heritage customer is a very different customer than the Street Bob customer. But be that as it may, I'm not sure if that has much to do with it. Maybe it is that it is the base model, and people typically will overlook the base model. So, you go into a shop and they have three different options. They have their cheapest basic option, they have their nicer option, then they have their luxury option, and kind of gives you the illusion of choice where you don't want to choose the cheapest. You're not here to spend the most amount of money, so you pick that intermediate level, and it's a very common thing to do. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, or maybe people have seen enough people do what I've seen them do, which is take a Street Bob and try to turn it into a lowrider. And in most cases, you're going to spend more on your Street Bob to try to get it to be a lowrider than you would if you just got a lowrider, and it still won't have the suspension, it still won't have the wheel styling and things like that. So what I kind of talk about is like floor to ceiling. Like, you're looking at a bike and you start from the ground up and you look at all of the features that it has, and you get up to where the bike has a ceiling on it. So floor to ceiling on the Street Bob, it's a great bike. It's a great platform. It's very enjoyable to ride. It has an average rake. It has an average wheelbase. And where the Street Bob kind of starts to fall short is really just fuel range. It has the smallest gas tank of any big twin Harley on the market right now. But being at a base model, and I don't really like the ceiling fan looking wheels. I call them ceiling fans. I'm not sure the name of that wheel. I really like the outer laced wheel. I think those look really good. So I'd be adding that $800 option on top of a bike that's $17,200, and you're talking about a bike that's $18,000, which isn't really entry level price. And starting at $18,000 with the wheels that I like, I don't know by whose metric that would be an entry level price to a motorcycle. And then if you are looking at $18,000 and then you say, well, hey, it's only $2,500 more to get a Lowrider S. And you do get a whole lot more bike if you look at the suspension and the gas tank, the fuel range, and also a more powerful engine. Now, when it comes to the engine power between the 117s, I don't think that it should be blown too far out of proportion. Like, the 117s are fantastic. It's kind of like Arnold saying he has a weak arm. Like, Arnold doesn't have a weak arm.
But what is important is gravity. I have to remind you, Sally, this is my weak arm.
Just because something is tiered and we have something here and then something's a little bit better, sometimes we make the mistake of thinking this is a piece of crap, and it's not really like that. They are very, very close. I don't think they're far enough apart for you to buy the 117 high output motor, even though you dislike both of those bikes. Like, you really want a Street Bob or you really want a Heritage, but the only reason you're going to get the bike is because it has the high output motor. I don't think that would really be a justifiable cause. And don't get me wrong, I do not dislike the Street Bob. I still show the Street Bob to a lot of people. And one thing we don't talk about a lot in this industry is the guys that are downsizing but not necessarily downgrading. So there's a lot of guys who've ridden hundreds of thousands of miles and been riding for 50, 60 years, and they get to an age where they're no longer touring anymore. They don't want to mess with the weight of a full dresser. They don't need the storage space. Their wife doesn't ride with them anymore. And they just want something to ride once or twice a month on the weekends here and there. The Street Bob is a wonderful bike for that. It is a very enjoyable bike to ride. It's very intuitive. It's very light. And if you're not going far, you don't really need the fuel range. And if you're not doing any riding that would necessitate the upgraded suspension of the Lowrider S, then a Street Bob is absolutely adequate. And now it comes with the ride modes, has the 117 motor, and it has cruise control built in. It's really a good bike overall. One thing about how we measure things is when we measure something, we have to compare it to something else. So if something is small, that means it's smaller than something else. And if something is large, it's because it's larger than something else. So the closest thing that we're always comparing the Street Bob to is the Lowrider S. And this is kind of where the complication comes in, is because most people, if you took 100 people and said money is not an object, which bike would you choose between the Lowrider S and the Street Bob? I think the vast majority of them would choose the Lowrider S. And the most people that I see that choose the Street Bob is because of that limiting factor of the budget. But if that limiting factor weren't there, I think that most of us would agree that the Lowrider S is a better investment and is a better bike. And again, this is on a spectrum. It doesn't mean that the Street Bob is not a good bike. It just means that if we're comparing those two things, it's very difficult to say that the Street Bob is better than the Lowrider S unless there's something specific about the styling that is your preference. But I'm curious to know what you guys see. Do you guys see a bunch of 2025 Street Bobs out there? And throughout the years, I feel like I've seen models get discontinued that still had a lot of interest, more interest than what I'm seeing the Street Bob receiving now. You have the Road King Standard got discontinued, which many people are upset about. The Fat Bob was discontinued, and we still have people coming in looking for a Fat Bob. But you guys know that I love talking about trends, where things are going, kind of how the community follows a certain trend, whether they mean to or not. And I kind of see the Street Bob dying off a little bit. I don't even see a whole lot of videos on the Street Bob this year like we see in the previous years. But it'll be interesting to see. I don't see the Street Bob getting discontinued at this point because there's only 6 models in the cruiser lineup, unless they're going to start rolling out other Softail models in the coming years, or maybe bringing back older models like the Deluxe or the Fat Bob or things like that. And right now I still think it fits in the lineup. I think it has a good spot in the lineup. I'm just curious as to what might be the contributing factors to why the Street Bob seems to have a lot less popularity this year than in the years past. And if you love your Street Bob, I'm not talking crap about your Street Bob at all. Like, I like all the bikes, so doing good, man. And if you made it this far, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.